Kia ora, hello, welcome to Fact or Fiction, episode 5. And this is Squirrel Swan Wicked Things. So I'm going to start by reading the opening sentence, sentence in the book, and that's going to be the first one. Charlotte Babcock had moved house 7 times in the past 5 years. For each move, she'd secured the reluctant help of her family, their smiles and no worries a little more forced each time, then loaded up her trailer with her piano, her exercycle and her 6-piece patio set. Why Charlotte felt it necessary to take this cumbersome furniture to each change in address, she did not use any of it enough to warrant this loyalty. She could not properly explain nor defend. And this, the discrepancy between her relatively nomadic existence and her unwieldy personal belongings, had been the topic of conversation for most of the family dinner last night, much to the mirth of everyone except Charlotte. Okay, so I'm really only looking at the first bit about the moving house and moving the furniture. What do we think? So this one is actually fact, and it's a combination of 2 things, me and a friend of mine. So I'm the one who moved. I went through a period of 2 years in which I literally moved house every 6 months. And I think it was about 4 times or 5 times in 2 or 3 years. And my family did get a little frustrated with me. And nothing really went wrong. There were just various, changing circumstances and things like that. So that was partly, that's me. But the bit with all the cumbersome furniture, that comes from my friend who told me one day how she had moved all this relatively random furniture with her to all her locations, and I was like, why? And she's like, I don't know, I just did. So yeah, it's fact, and it's both her and me. So yeah, that's the opening sentence or paragraph to Wicked Things. Okay, moving on to Wicked Things. So Wicked Things, the main case is the death of Estelle Royce, and some of the main suspects in this murder or death are her 3 children. So 3 siblings, and they work together. They run a business together. So I wanted to ask you whether you think that is fact or fiction. That is fiction. Now, I do have 2 siblings. There are 3 of us. I have an older sister and I have a younger brother. So I am the classic middle child. We do not work together, and we are not the characters in the book. Yeah, not at all. But there are 3 of us, and so, that's mostly fiction. I will say, my mother is called Barbara, and she plays bridge. So if you've read the book, you'll know that reference. That is a little nugget from real life. And this book lightly mentions the lockdown. So I did wrestle with the idea of not talking about the lockdown and COVID, because let's face it, who wants to read about that? But because this book sort of follows a very tight timeline and it refers to so many real things, I sort of felt like I had to at least acknowledge it, and it worked quite well in terms of the plot. So if you haven't read it, I do incorporate, I sort of acknowledge it, but then move on. We don't really dwell on it. So in New Zealand, you may or may not know, we went through a very strict lockdown immediately. So we had, oh God, and I can't remember now. It's all just a big blur. I'm sure you guys are the same. There's all a big blur of the last few years, but I think it was 8 weeks of really severe lockdown when we first went into to stop the transmission. And I was one of those people that actually, being an introvert, I actually quite liked it. It did get to a point where I was like, okay, this is I've had enough. But I'm one of those people who do quite well in lockdown. So my apologies to anyone who is an extrovert or living in a crowded situation, or I do feel for you, but I'm the classic introvert in that way. And finally, there is a murder in this book, and I can't really talk about it much. But I wanted just to acknowledge, and I do acknowledge this in the end, that this was actually inspired by something real. So there wasn't a murder like this in my, in my life, but there are aspects of it that were based on a real thing, a real nugget. I was inspired by a little nugget of an acquaintance. So yeah, I can't really say more without spoiling anything, but once you've read the book, just know that the murderer was inspired by a real person and something they said. So that's a little nugget for you. So I think that's all for book number 5. A mixture of fact and fiction. And yeah, that's all for me. I'll see you next time.